Hughes High School together, and at the time we were living in the same neighborhood, and we had a math class with Mr. Pollum at Langston Hughes High School, and Chris sat in front of me, and I was so unprepared for class. So I tapped him when the teacher told us to pull our stuff out, and I was like, hey, you got some paper? And he's like, yeah, I got you. Like, I got some paper. So he gives me the paper, and then I say again, once I realized like I don't have nothing to write with either, got a pencil? That was our kickoff conversation. From there, we just did a lot of talking, and we became very, very close friends. At the time, I was in a very, very, very toxic relationship. At one point in that relationship, while we were on like a break, I guess, Chris had expressed to me how he felt about me. And I also expressed to him, like, you know, I have feelings too, but I don't want to bring you into this, and I'm not really done with this person. At the time, I was battling with self-esteem and self-love and self-worth, and things from my past, things from family issues. He was an amazing friend. He never overstepped. He never pushed me. He never made me feel like it was awkward after we talked about how we felt or anything like that. Eventually, I got done dealing with that toxic relationship, and then Chris and I decided we were going to give it a shot. Chris shined light in my life that I didn't even know that I needed, and I was able to start working on the things that had made me the way that I was. It takes an incredibly strong person to love someone through their brokenness. I needed him in more ways than it was clear. Year 4 of our relationship, I decided that I was going to finally go to the military. Everything was fine. We were in a great place. We had all of these plans for things that were going to come. When I got to my A school, we talked all the time, and then there was a day where he was trying to call me, but for whatever reason, my phone, it would let me answer, but I couldn't hear anything. But I was like in the process of turning my phone off and on, trying to figure it out, and I ended up missing the call. The next day, the entire day goes by, and I'm like, something's not right. We talk all day. Like, what's going on? Usually I have a text from him, a phone call. And the reason why I didn't reach out is because I was in A school. So during, I guess you could say, business hours, we were not allowed to have our phone. I remember this day like it was yesterday. It's so crazy. I was at the SAC, which is like the Student Activity Center. I got a phone call from his sister, and they were like, well, how good are you under pressure? Because I'm hesitant to put this type of stuff on you. And I'm like, oh, I'm pretty good. So she tells me that Chris has flatlined multiple times and that it's not looking good. When she says this to me, I'm not processing it. Like, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like, how did this happen or whatever? And mind you, I'm still, I guess you could say, in shock, because I didn't process it until I hung up the phone. As soon as I hung up the phone, it's like a ton of bricks smacked me. Like, no, not my Chris. Like, Chris was fine. I just talked to him. So I am like breaking down. Like, I can't walk. I'm like, I can't stand. I am just like shattered. My friends, and these are people who I'm still friends to this day, are like standing around me, and they're like, what's going on here? What's going on? And so I'm telling them what's happening. So they're like trying to get me into the barracks so that I can talk to NMTIs and everything else to try to get me home as soon as possible. My friends had already packed my bags for me to go. They had already got all my stuff together, had already figured out my transportation. And within 4 hours of paperwork and everything else, I was on my way to Atlanta. That was the most dreadful flight of my life. I'm on a flight, and all I can do is worry. And I'm like, what if he passes before I get there? And like, what if I'm not able to do this? And what if I'm not able to do that? I'm panicking. I pulled out my phone, and I'm like in my notes, and I'm like writing down prayers and prayers and prayers. I get to the hospital, and at this point, there are still no answers. Like, what happened? That to me was worse than seeing him here in this way, because he was fine 1 minute, and now he's hanging on to dear life in the next. At first, they were making me go home. Like, they wouldn't let me stay in the hospital with him. I couldn't sleep because I was so afraid that I was going to miss a phone call, or I was going to miss an important text message regarding his status. So once they started letting me stay at the hospital, I was there the entire day, entire night. I'm praying over him constantly. I'm calling on any and everybody that I know to be prayer warriors. Knowing what I knew, because I do have like a medical background, I knew that it wasn't looking good. And I was kind of Christian that always battled with my faith. I need tangible. I need something to make sense. You have to make it make sense. You can't tell me that I have $0 in my account, but if I have faith, the bill is going to get paid. This was the one time that somehow, I don't know where, I don't know if it was denial, I don't know if it was a psychiatric break, but I honestly got to a place of feeling like it didn't matter what the numbers said. It didn't matter what the doctors were saying, because he was going to pull through this. And I remember getting so worked up because they had a family meeting and the doctor was telling us like it's a 1 in a million chance that he's going to wake up. And I ended up telling the doctor, like, that's what you say and those are your numbers and you're supposed to go by the books, and I understand that you're doing your job, but where you say it's impossible, that's where God specializes in. And I am just declaring like that he's going to be okay. I believe in my heart and soul, that he knew that I was there. When I got there, the nurses were saying, like, I was asking like, well, what's going on and how is he doing, and they were saying that basically there was nothing, like there was no activity from him, there was no movement, there was no anything. And having a medical background, I do know that it could very much so have just been the brain having natural reflexes and things like that. But I believe in my heart and soul that he knew that I was there, because I remember the nurse being so shocked because I was talking to him. He like moved his hand, like his hands were laying like this. I grabbed the hand that was closest to me and I was rubbing his face and was talking to him, and his hand did this, like into my hand. The only other time that I saw him move was he would have like reflexes to them washing his face or them doing he had a breathing tube, so when they would do the suction he would have like a gag reflex and stuff. And these were things that could have just been the brain being the brain and still being alive, or it could have been some type of change in his condition. So by the end of that day, I tell him, I know that your heart stopping and being restarted and you coding all these times and stuff like that, like it has to have been painful and it has to have been difficult, like you trying to be here for us that's on earth, and I'm sure that you've seen your mom and your brother. I'm gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna stick together. We all gonna be okay. And this was, I had a day and a half left to be there. And from that day, I never got any more movement out of him. Like, he never moved his hand again. He never, like, winced his face. He never did anything else after that. To me, it was like he was waiting for that. I ended up having to go back to Texas for duty because I only was given 5 days. So when I got back to Texas, I want to say not even a few days into me being there, his older sister calls me and says, hey, they pronounced him brain dead. They are going to unhook him. I'm like in the middle of the hallway when she calls me, and I'm like on the floor. And I was training to be a corpsman at the time, so ironically, our first lesson was on rigor mortis and brain death and all these other things. And I ended up getting pulled out of class by one of my friends. I didn't even realize that in my note taking, I was crying. Like, I didn't even realize, honestly. I was just sitting there and I was writing, and I guess I left. Like, I was not in my body. I literally went home for the funeral and came back immediately after the funeral. Like, I didn't stay, I didn't take any more time. I just drowned myself in my work. I went into like denial. I went into all types of stuff. Like, I got to a point to where I didn't process him passing. I didn't accept that he passed. I didn't acknowledge it. And then I got to a place of just being very dark about it. Like, I remember a girl complaining to me over and over and over again about not being able to see her boyfriend for the full 2 weeks of her leave. And I was like, it could be worse. He could be dead. Like, it could be a lot worse. Trust me. Every single weekend I was getting super drunk. I maintained my GPA. I was very high in my class, but I was not good at all. I ended up getting into some trouble. And while I was in trouble, we still hadn't had the autopsy yet. Like, we hadn't got the results back. I started to realize that there are things that, like, I have never dealt with that his passing has triggered. And I didn't know at the time until I, like, got in trouble. And I'm going through the counseling. And so the counselors are like, this is deeper than this, and you have to start dealing with this. I didn't deal with him passing, and I didn't acknowledge him passing, because that would have required me to acknowledge everything that him passing brought up for me, and everything that him passing made me feel, and everything that him passing was doing to my psyche, and it wasn't good. I was so afraid of dealing with all of those feelings, because I was opening up several unmarked cans of worms, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I was so afraid of unraveling, because how was I going to come back from that? It wasn't easy. I had a lot of down times. I had times of, like, while I was in trouble, I was on restriction, and we weren't able to have our phones. We weren't able to do anything, basically. And so I remember me having a breakdown because I couldn't remember his voice. Usually I would have my phone, so I would be able to, like, watch our videos all the time, look at our pictures all the time, and I couldn't do that. And I remember another time where we had two songs, the John Legend So High song and the Stay With You song, which were our songs and our wedding song. And I remember going to the MA, like, in boohoo tears, because I could not remember the lyrics of the song. Like, I remembered some of it, but not all of it. And it was just things like that that would trigger me so badly. And I didn't know why. Like, I didn't know why. I didn't understand why these counseling sessions were bringing all of this stuff out of me and all of these feelings stuff. Because after the funeral, I didn't cry anymore. I just shut down really, really, really bad. My friends were so concerned. My mom was so concerned. Everybody was like, I'm so worried about you, because I even had a friend that we have been friends for like 13, 14 years. And I remember her telling me after leaving the hospital that she was so scared, because out of all of those years and out of everything that I've been through, she had never seen me broken, ever. Had never seen me just lost. I remember my mom telling me, like, I didn't know what to say to you. I didn't know how to be there. I remember my friends telling me that they didn't know what to say or what to do or what the right thing to do was. And I remember everybody being so concerned, like, you're in Texas by yourself. Nobody knows, like, your mental state. You're going through all of this stuff at one time. And then it was a very scary time, because I did get to a place of, I was upset when I would wake up the next day, because I didn't want to live. Like, I didn't want to feel all of these things, and things that I couldn't understand, things that I couldn't make sense. And it was like, in the military, you still gotta do your job. So it's like, pull it together, because we don't want to hear about it. And I knew that I had completely broke down and lost it, because I had an MA. And for those who don't know, an MA is basically like military, not police, but somewhere along those lines. And I was getting in trouble for a situation. I was talking to my NMTI, which is like my teacher, the person who's over my class, and the MA was sitting there. And so the NMTI was like, why do I know your name? Like, why do I know your name so strongly? And so I kept trying to deflect, because I was like, I don't want to go all into why you know my name, but you knew my name because, like, at the time my mom was going through some stuff. I had just lost Chris, and they were just doing all my paperwork and everything else. So that's why he knew who I was. He was like, answer me, blah, 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 blah. And so I tell him, and in the midst of me telling him, the MA busts out and says, boo fucking who? No one gives a shit. That's not an excuse. And the reason why it triggered me so bad was because instead of using everything that I was going through, which was valid, I did need time. I did need to step back. I did need to back up. I did need to regroup, and I did need to go through healing. I did need to grieve. I did need to get out of denial. I didn't. I came back the day after the funeral. I did my job. I did a damn good job at that. And I maintained everything. I didn't give them excuses as to why I wasn't coming. I did not show up to anything. I was everywhere that I needed to be. So much so to where I was so broken and so torn apart, and I'm doing stupid stuff on the weekends, and I'm getting drunk, blackout drunk. I'm like, terrified. I'm at a place where I don't even want to live, and you tell me that I am making an excuse. Like, I didn't even want to talk to you about this. You pushed me to talk about it. I didn't want to share it with you, because instead of me using Chris's passing and everything that I was going through as a reason to take some time to myself, I used it as my drive to go harder. So it was a slap in the face. Then we ended up finding out that the reason why he passed was because he had myocarditis and hypertensive heart disease. And that did something to me, because Chris had chest pains every now and again. And every single time I would take him to the hospital, to the doctor, somewhere, because I know that chest pain can be anything from gas and heartburn to a very, very, very serious thing. And because the doctors never cared enough to look, because they only followed the textbook answer as to, well, these are the symptoms and these are the sure identifiers, and he doesn't have these, and he's young, and he doesn't have high blood pressure. He didn't fit the little box that he needed to fit into for them to care enough to look deeper. So that's how he passed. And I went through, like I said, I went through a ton of counseling. I went through a ton of everything. I break down all the time. I'm at a place now where I try to keep my feelings separate from reality, because I know that the things that I feel, even though I have reason to feel those ways, that doesn't mean it's the reality. Like, I blame myself a lot. I beat myself up a lot. But I say all this to say, I attribute who I am today to who he built me up to be. I had to experience Chris, and I had to experience losing Chris, and I had to experience the love that he had to offer in order for me to be where I am today. He left me with the strength to be able to do it on my own. He left me with the tools that I needed in order to maintain all of that, in order to be great, in order to realize that being strong isn't not breaking down. It's being strong enough to break down and come back from it. I am who I am because of who he was for me. It's an everyday journey, like I said. It's not easy. It's about to be 2 years now, and I have days that the pain feels as though it's the very, very first day. So that's it. I'm gonna get off because I'm gonna go cry. So see you guys later.